It's so much fun. Okay. So much fun. Alrighty, so I'm gonna, let's see here. I got two things going on. We are now live on Facebook. So thank you all for joining our public program for the month. We are continuously celebrating our 20th year anniversary. So this is a part of our public programming as we continue to celebrate and find ways to share our work and connect with the broader art community of in New York City and around the country. This evening, we'll be hearing from our board member, Chloe Hayward, in conversation with Sherrill Roland. Sherrill will be introduced a little bit later. But Chloe is one of our newer board members. She is an artist, educator, licensed board certified art therapist who resides in Harlem. Her role currently is working as education manager at the Studio Museum. She oversees teen programs, family programs, and schools and community partnerships. Her work centers around the museum as a space for transformative experiences grounded in the creative arts processes. It's been a pleasure having Chloe on our board. She's continuously reminding us to think of ways to bring awareness about promoting social change, equity, and inclusion under the umbrella of art therapy and mental health. So thank you so much, Chloe, for all the hard work you put into the board and for leading this conversation. I am going to go off camera now and allow you to introduce our guest for the evening, and I'll rejoin at the end for Q&A.
Thank you so much for that, Curtis. I really felt that warm welcome. And thank you everyone for joining us tonight. We're thrilled to welcome an artist who I've witnessed over the years not only create, but build community and hold space and amplify a vision and a narrative that supports change in this world, which we always need. So I would like you to join me in welcoming Sherrill Roland. Sherrill is an interdisciplinary artist whose work explores concepts of innocence, identity, and community, reimagining their social and political implications in the context of the American criminal justice system. Through sculptures, drawings, multimedia objects, performances, and participatory activities, he shares his story and creates space for others to do the same, illuminating the invisible costs, damages, and burdens of incarceration. So with that, it is my hope that in this virtual space here tonight, we can hear more about Sherrill's artistic process and practice, as I know that it speaks deeply to the work and the mission of Artistic Noise. So with that, welcome, Sherrill.
Thank you, Chloe. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah.
And thank you everybody who's joining us this evening.
Yeah, it's so great to be able to reconnect with you. I know we first met, I think it was 2017 at Studio Museum. Some of your work was in our exhibition Fictions, curated by Hallie Ringel, who at the time was associate curator at Studio Museum and who's now curator at Birmingham Museum of Contemporary Art. So down south in your area.
Yeah, I gotta take it all the southeast. We gotta stick together for sure.
Yeah, so I'll start with this. You know, as many of you here tonight know, a part of the mission of Artistic Noise is to support positive reentry for youth who've experienced the justice system. And Sherrill, I would love it if you would share with us your experience with the justice system, any other thoughts that you want to share about also reentry and what that looked like and felt like for you.
To, I guess, familiarize everybody with my situation, I was wrongfully incarcerated and falsely accused in Washington, D.C. At a time where I did not live in D.C. And resided in North Carolina. I had a warrant out for my arrest for these charges while I was starting grad school in 2012. finishing the first year, entering my second year, I was sentenced, found guilty, sentenced to a year and 30 days in Washington, D.C. Since my sentence exceeded a year, I had potential to go off to a federal prison, but was held in their city center jail in Southeast DC for the entirety of my sentence. And then on getting out, I had another introduction to the justice system in the sense of probation. I had probation time to do. And it was so crazy with my situation that, I mean, even the day that I was supposed to receive my wake-up call to get released, there was a malfunction in the jail. So I was supposed to have been released before 7 a.m. That morning, but they didn't release me till 4 p.m. And being in jail, I had no opportunity to call out. I didn't have access to the phones. We were on lockdown for some reason in the jail. So there was no way for me to get in touch with my family who had been waiting for me, this, that, and the fourth. So it was just like terrible. And then the way that the jail interacted with us, those who were being released that day, like, receiving monies that we had on our commissary that was supposed to come to us as we left. They were threatening to close the offices, so we weren't able to get any money. And since I was on probation, I was supposed to see my probation officer directly after being released. And because I got released so late in the afternoon, their offices closed around 5. So without any money, potentially, I had to get across town to a probation office I never knew even existed. I didn't, wasn't familiar with Washington, D.C. But ultimately I did. So it was like, there's a lot of these little like stories I have with my situation. Like soon as it started, it became a hassle, a headache. When I went to see my probation officer, my first probation officer allowed me to re-enter my state of North Carolina and to get transferred and do my probation time down here in North Carolina. Less than a week and a half went by and I got a call from another probation officer saying that first probation officer should not have let me go. And I needed to report back immediately to Washington, D.C. And I was like, I just got out of jail. I don't have any money. I don't have any, anything. I'm trying to get it together. And they gave me a short time. I had to get up there within like a few days. And when I arrived back, they told me I couldn't leave. And not only could I not leave, that I couldn't go outside a certain mileage from the center city point. So like I had a cousin who lived in College Park who went to Howard. And that's a stop right off the metro, but that was too far. If I was found sleeping on her couch, that would have violated my probation. And I would have done my remaining probation time in jail. But I'm just trying to give you a little glimpse of like some of these like crazy nuances. My charges were not drug charges, but I had to do drug testing. It was another way of like keeping me there in the city. I had family members who passed away during my probation time in Washington, D.C., and they refused me the ability to go attend funerals during that time. So it was like all these little things were kind of adding up on top of the fact that I didn't do anything anyways. So like nobody was even listening to me, and there was no type of compassion or grace for that. And I was just treated with the charges that I had as somebody who wasn't even supposed to be back in society amongst citizens. And if I did, it was like I couldn't even ask for anything. I just had to obey, which was a tough thing to do with the guidelines that were set. But yeah, just a little bit into the like, not having money, trying to find a place to stay, things that you're kind of pushed to do to survive. For me, I had to bend some rules just to make it work in a place that I had never lived,
Right, absolutely. And I think it's no secret to all of us here that, the justice system is not one that's rooted in care, and I'm hearing you share all of these systems and structures that actually create barriers, right? And restrictions to being able to simply do what was being asked of you, which you shouldn't have even had to been doing anyway, because, you know, you didn't belong there. And so holding all of that, I just want to know, as someone who's experienced something such as this with the justice system, can you talk more about how that experience has impacted sort of the how and the why of how you make your art?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, being on that roller coaster ride that I was on, the ups and the downs, well, it was mostly just downs.
Downs, yeah. A lot of
And then,
downs, yeah.
yeah, and you know, things started to turn for me with my retrial and exoneration. But after I had kind of been, you know, put through the ringer in the first portion of it, right? Like going to trial, stationary hearings, negotiating with lawyers about, you know, being retained, trying to come up with the money to have a decent defense, all of that, and then getting convicted, and then going through all of that, and then coming out, and then going through this probation. And then as soon as I got everything overturned, what was told to me was like, everything was like, you know, hooray. I remember I was in my mom's living room when I got the call from my from my lawyers, and they were like, there's like, we got a trial date set for April 14th for the retrial. And I was like, okay, it's a couple weeks before that. So it's like just towards the end of March. And I got the call, and I'm just walking around the living room talking. I'm sure everybody kind of paces when they're on the phone sometimes. And I remember just peeking through the peek hole. Nobody was out there. I'm just kind of, you know, moving around, talking to my lawyer, who was a great lawyer. But she was just like, yeah, you don't have to come up here in a couple of weeks. And I was like, why? Why don't I have to come here? What happened? And she was like, with the retrial, the other side just went ahead and forfeited. So they're not even going to fight you on that. And so it was like a crazy up, like, you know, like out of all this fighting, we get to this retrial, and then it's like, I didn't even have to fight, you know, and they went ahead and I went ahead and won. But after that, like, you know, the excitement was like, you're gonna get your name back. You can start all over again. Just act like this stuff is never existed, you know. Put it all behind you. You can move forward like it never happened. And that's where the real struggle came for me, was like, I just can't, like, you know, there's no way. I'm having trouble in the grocery store. I'm having trouble around family. You know, it's tough. Like, you know, within family dynamics, you know, sometimes you have like family secrets, you know what I'm saying? And so during this time, like even my grandmothers, they were completely unaware that I was incarcerated. Like I would call during the holidays, and my mom would catch it before the 15 minutes was up, before my grandma heard the operator catch it. They just thought I was in school. So it was like the whole, like the frustration of like living out this lie, continuing to live out this lie, or as if it didn't happen, really messed me up. And I think that's when I started to return to art. I was looking at that time in my life, I was looking for a place to put all of that energy, all of that questioning. I had to figure out what to do with it now. And art was my card to play. And my mom told me to go back to grad school, and that was the place that I could kind of really do the rough work, shake it up, my life, myself, the questions that I had.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hearing you try to resolve after all these difficult and painful and frustrating, you know, insert emotion here, experiences, right? Like, how do you move forward? And, you know, it's really important what you said, right? The way that you move forward was through art. And, you know, maybe you can talk a little bit about the Jumpsuit Project, because that's how we first connected. But it's such a fantastic project, and I just would love it if you could say more about how, you know, returning to art as your way to move forward, how that impacted the work that you were making and where you were at in that moment, and how the Jumpsuit Project sort of manifested, and what that looked like, and what the Jumpsuit Project is.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it first started with me like stepping back into the idea of me even going back to school. Coming back out, there was a lot of responses that I had to spaces that I was familiar with, but I was different now. So like
Mhm.
even being around my family or being around my mom or going back to like, old spaces or being around old crowds, um, familiar crowds, I just felt completely different. And so stepping back out there, trying to get myself back out into the world in job interviews in spaces, school being one of them. I had to reconnect with the faculty that I had left, because at the time nobody really knew what was going on with me. They didn't know I went to jail. They just thought like I had like a shake up in my life and just had to like bail out of grad school. So returning and kind of dropping this bomb on them, like, where have you been the last like few years? Like, oh, I was locked up, And it's hard to believe, in the sense that the last time that they saw me, everything was all good, to being like, everything's not all good, and I just kind of disappeared. So, reconnecting with people, reconnecting in that space at the university with the faculty and people that I was close to, that's when these questions start coming up. Like, man, like, I don't even think I belong back in the school for a number of different reasons. I had changed my perspective of what education was, and who is what education means, in the sense of like, what type of validation is that? Is it worth it? As far as like, I've met plenty of people who are incarcerated with me who might not have a formal education in that sense, but was like way smarter than me. And so, yeah, I had a lot of questions about that space. And when I came back, I really had questions more so about, coming from a place that I felt as I was alone, that not many people are going to understand where I'm coming from. So, who here at this campus is going to understand what I just went through? Are there anybody out there who kind of understands what I'm kind of going through? And walking through campus, everybody's like happy to be there, and I just don't have that joy anymore. Like, I don't have that openness, that blissfulness in that space. And so I was like, I don't read it. I can't read it on anybody, that, the things that I was struggling and the burden that I was carrying. So I began to ask questions like, what would it look like if I actually like presented this experience in this space? Because ultimately thinking about where I left school, where I ended up in jail, and now where I'm coming back, like, what happens if those two places like actually merge? And I was seeing similarities, like in the art building, like places where I was comfortable to seeing like white concrete walls, cement floors. I was like, man, like, it's an art building. I used to love this place, but now all I can think about is jail or my jail cell. And so that's when it started like coming together, piecing together for me to have the idea, creating a foundation for me to have the idea that came later. What would an orange jumpsuit look like on campus? And that presented the Jumpsuit Project. And the Jumpsuit Project was me wearing an orange jumpsuit on campus until I graduated, every day to any school related event. I just operated under the same rules as if I was in jail, like migration rules, through the facility, and apply that to school. And I attended classes and everything like that, but just in an orange jumpsuit. It was a long-winded answer. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, you had me. I have so many thoughts in response to that. First of all, I love the way that, I mean, I don't love the experience that you had, but I love how you transformed that experience, especially as someone who's an educator themselves and works in education and believes in the power of education. Just the ways that you were critically sort of dissecting, reframing, reshifting the narrative about what education can look like, and sort of in this moment, reclaiming it for yourself, in your art and in your practice. And also, the ways in which you were speaking to the visual imagery and the physical spaces that we occupy, and how that can hold meaning depending on someone's experiences. And with the Jumpsuit Project, I'm thinking about artistic noise, and how one of our main priorities is to create experiences rooted in safety and structure, and how important all of that is. And as someone who experienced, I'm going to use this language, something so violent, you know, as incarceration, I'm just wondering, with the Jumpsuit Project, you know, there was some serious potential dangerous ramifications for that. So like, what did you do? Or maybe you can say more about how you created safety and structure in performing that work.
Yeah, I asked my mom's permission first. She thought I was nuts. And, she was like, "No, I don't think that's a good idea." She was like, I don't think that's a good idea at all." And I was like, I can't really see myself going back to school. And I was like, if I go back to school, I gotta actually do some work. I mean, and not that what I was doing wasn't work, but like, there's something I gotta get out and do, and I gotta be brave about it. I gotta like really go for it, because like the things that I'm needing changed within myself in this experience. Like I need like major radical change. I need it, you know? And
Yeah.
I've never considered doing performance before. And so like, you know, that's all that's all I was thinking about, was like, yo, I'm actually about to step out here and do this thing. This is what's needed. And it was crazy for me, like the interior conversations I'm having. And I used to just talk to myself about that. Like, yo, like there's nothing anybody out here can say to me, you know, that could make me feel as hurt as I was going through the experience of like the jail thing, you know, and like the court and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
So, but physical safety, yes, that's a real thing. That's a very dangerous thing for me to do, wearing an orange jumpsuit out in public. But on campus, we had meetings prior to the first day of school, before I began, with campus police, and trying to have conversations of bringing them into this artist project, you know, and having them be open-minded. They had their, you know, they had their suggestions, like it should say artist project, it shouldn't do this, shouldn't do that. And I was like, look, it's not theatrical in a way that like I'm not playing anything, like, you know, like there's no handcuffs, there's none of that or anything like that. But yeah, there was a lot of meetings before. We wanted it to be a surprise to the campus body, but everybody who needed to know knew before that, and everybody who I felt that I could get in trouble with, like like the city patrolling police, they knew. They got memos. Campus police knew. And every time that I passed campus police, I spoke.
Yeah.
I didn't want to be in a situation where like someone knew of me. Like, yeah, I know of that kid wearing that orange jumpsuit on campus. Like, I actually wanted them to know my name, or like be engaged with me to a certain extent. To be like, oh no, like, you know, have some form of relationship, because that's where the safety is. Like, I can't feel protected by these people if I don't like know you and you feel like you know me. You know what I mean, in a way. And because I, you know, already had trust issues, that was just a no fly. Like, no, we gotta talk. We gotta have a conversation. You know, my body's out here on the line. I don't want you, you know, taking it lightly.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm just like now holding in my mind, right, this juxtaposition of like, you know, the hurt you experienced by having to go through the whole process with the justice system, and sort of like what I'm getting from it is like perhaps like feeling unseen, right? Because people are responding to you in a way that's not authentic to who you actually are. I mean, they don't even have their facts straight. So there's that. But then, you know, there's like this layered element of like not really recognizing the person as a person, right? And also holding that with what you said so beautifully, like safety in relationships, right? There is a safety in knowing, and there is a safety in relationships, and it's important to have that. And I'm glad that you were able to connect in that way and make those relationships as you made that work. And I'd also no, go ahead.
I was saying I wasn't batting 1,000 though. You know, I attempted.
Yeah. Well, you know, I mean, you don't got to dance with everyone. So, you know. sometimes it is what it is, but you know, you try. Um, but I wanted to say here that one of the most beautiful things that I find as an art therapist is the way that art can almost, it's magic, right? It can magically give voice and vision to our personal experiences. And I think that's part of what I'm responding to when I'm hearing you share about, you know, to go from, correct me if I'm wrong, you were someone who before this experience where you were in art school and you were making like it was more like object based art making, to then like have this complete pivot to having performative experiences. And so like really needing like your soul, like crying out to make this work in this way, because that's what art does. You know, I feel like um, it doesn't just happen, like you're called to do it, to make, you know. And artistic noise, one of the connections I'm seeing here is that artistic noise was built on the understanding that people's experiences, especially experiences of young people, are so valuable, and everyone's experience brings a unique and important perspective to the table. And so I would like to ask you, what has art done to help you express your perspective, particularly on the carceral system?
It's given me the platform to, you know, definitely share, but create a space. I mean, like what I've found and I've enjoyed through the Jumpsuit Project is like a way of blurring hierarchy, and that everybody, again, like everybody experience has value, no matter what your job title is or what you may be doing out on the street or anything like that. Like by stepping in this space within my Jumpsuit Project, it was like we're all equal and we're all. I don't have my project may have been the lead, but it was nice when it was like conversation was happening and I just could just sit back and also learn. That was like a gift because I'm entering in other people's communities and they have more value to speak on their communities than I do, you know, or more agency to do that. And so that has been one of the great and nice things that I have enjoyed, is sharing the space with other people and learning from other people's experience. I've had one experience with incarceration. And then through this project and even like trying to open up my ears, like I started to interview my friends and family because they held another position, like, you know, close to this, and they had other things that they went through and didn't have an outlet just like I didn't either. So there's like a video that I had made in grad school that had like my mom and my friends. I just put the camera in front of them and gave them two questions. Like everybody who visited me in jail, I just asked like, what was it like for you? And then the second question was like, how has it changed your perspective on the you know, criminal justice system or whatever? And I've seen some of my friends I've never seen cry before, but they cried during that video. Like with my mom, she couldn't even speak the words with me being in the room. Like I just had to hit the play or the record and just leave her there. And just like, you know, I saw the you know, I saw the video later, but it was like, you know, these outlets, these spaces are really important.
That resonates with me. Also, you know, for me anyway, and I don't know if you can relate to this, a lot of times I find it's not what people call you, it's how they treat you, right? And I think that the way in which we connect and interact with other people is what often creates community and collaboration, right? And you started to touch on, you know, the idea of community. And so, you know, what do I want to ask here? I want to ask more about collaboration. That's what I want to ask about. You know, your work often creates spaces of community, and I wanted to know more about how art has allowed you to collaborate. What does collaboration look like for you? You know, why collaboration?
Yeah, right now, I'm doing some collaboration with some youth in Wake County, down here in North Carolina. Right now, it's just African American males because like I can speak from that. But it's with them, it's with North Carolina Museum of Art, and it's with North Carolina Central University law students. And so I am trying to form these conversations between possibly justice involved youth with law students, and creating this opportunity to it's kind of like social contracts, you know, and I just remember, you know, me being the role that I have in my family, speaking to like my younger cousins and like hearing their grandparents, like my mom and siblings and whatever, say things to them, and me being in the middle of it, like, you know, they should know better, you know? And I like, you say that to me all the time, but I was 18, like, or 16, like, how am I supposed to know? I only got 16 years of experience on this world, you know? And so I was like this, like always mediator or like, you know, this person in between. And I understood that I always go back to this, Toni Morrison's acceptance speech. She read, and within it anyways, it's like the youth who have the birds in their hand asking the older wise woman who's blind in the village. You guys have to Google search it later. But anyways, it's like, it's talking about the life and if literature is alive and whose job it is to keep alive or leave it dead. And so like thinking about language, like our generations, like the 80s had certain slangs, right? And so did the 70s. And then it just keeps changing. Like, so it's alive and then some things die off, like, you know, but whose responsibility is it? And it's also like, you know, there's those in the 80s actually grew up underneath the 70s and reinvented it. So both are needed, the elders and the youth. So like, I keep that in mind in the sense of always trying to work with youth that they can best illustrate the world that they see, you know, because it's not my world. I'm not living my life the age I am as a 16-year-old person, you know, and it's important to give that platform and give them the same eye-level platform to speak to their experiences. And I think that's where I'm at with collaboration, is also like trying to enlighten people, inform people of the law. I'm no law expert, but with my own personal experience, I know how disadvantaged I was with my familiarity in entering into that position. And so I think, you know, these are tools that are used against us. It's best that we familiarize ourselves with the toolkit to not be taken advantage of.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's so beautiful to hear all of the work that you're doing with young people down south and the ways that you're engaging them. I think that's why I was so excited to talk with you tonight, because I see so many connections to your work and the work that you're doing, especially with young people, and the work that, you know, we're trying to do over here at Artistic Noise. You know, and when you talked about, you know, just creating space for people to, especially young people, to express their perspective, you know, and what's going on with them. I think it's also important when we zoom out and think about advocacy, you know, for themselves, and then also particularly for the Black community. And so I'm wondering if you can share any connections you find between your art making practice and creating a space of advocacy.
Yeah, I mean, like even with my Jumpsuit Project, it's like a thin line of like protest also. And I think through me, the opportunity that I had to share my story, that I started to understand that, you know, it may be specific to me, but at the same time, there's a lot of people who also share similarity to my story. And so speaking up for myself could also help and speak up for somebody else who may not have the opportunity, right? Like I got out of my situation, but there are probably more people, not probably, there are more people who haven't got out of their situation like this. And so for me to be able to push, share some of the inner workings of the things that are kind of were set up on me and my experience, could kind of like, because, you know, you don't get all of that. Like, you know, it's like, it can, some of the, you know, it could be a trip to the grocery store and you tell every little event along that could be really like a happening story, you know? And I think there's a lot of things that is assumed with our justice system that's not correct, and so for the most part, I'm trying to do better with my situation because I learned a lot from the other men that I was in there with through their situations. That perspective in there was like, I had a lot to cry about. I mean, I cried a lot, but
Yeah,
I was also
sure.
I was also like, I cried to my mom as much as I could through letters, but the other men that I was in there with were like, the guy the cell to my right, he already spent more than 20 years in, and he's got a 20 to life bid. And then the guy on my left, he's on trial for life, and he ultimately got life. And his co-defendant got 56 years to life. Like, like these, and they have like, to watch them kind of, I speak about this gentleman's like he used to get made fun of. He's in his late 40s, facing life, and they were like, what are you doing? Like learning algebra. We working around here with this algebra book all the time. And people thought he was like actually trying to like learn math for himself, like he didn't know. But actually his daughter, like, he was learning it because the 15 minutes that he did get on the phone, he used to help with her in her homework.
Wow.
Like, these things, like, I had learned so much in perspective, gained so much through perspective of proximity for other people who have been involved with the justice system, that like coming out, I had to kind of like not only share mine, but like everybody that I've been in kind of weaved within that experience, like I didn't come out the way I did just on my own abilities. Like, it was a lot of tutelage and sharing that was going on with other people who have kind of walked their own lives and paths, and kind of like, shared and gave me perspective coming back out,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Each one teach one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thinking about emotions, right? And um, just like the heaviness of everything that you've experienced, and like you spoke about, others have experienced, even thinking of some of the youth that we work with at Artistic Noise. We're working with a staff of teaching artists, licensed art therapists, and we always want to make sure that young people are feeling supported throughout their time. And as someone who's also doing this work as well, I'm wondering, how and where do you find support as an individual who's been impacted by this justice system? And I'm also thinking and wondering, what does care look like for you personally or professionally, whichever way you
I think that Jumpsuit Project, that it had a life after graduation, really helped me. It became my therapy sessions. At times I had thought like, I was moving on just fine. Like, I'm doing pretty good. I got other things going on to kind of keep me busy. Then I get an invitation to wear this jumpsuit, and then I'll put the jumpsuit on and get back out there, and then realize like, oh, it's not over. Something that I'm going to continue to have to kind of like talk to somebody with, bring it up, readdress, like, think about, and they became like, like my poor man's like therapy sessions. It's wild that this project had become, I got to speak to people, in sharing groups, like, it just felt that way. Like, my name's Sherrill Roland, this is my thing. And people who came in actually had stories or comfort or, encouragement or anything, like, and to sharing. And that was really great for me. That was really great work for myself, personality, for me to be able to kind of return back home and engage with my loved ones, to as a person that they once were familiar with, like getting back to someone who resembled like the person I used to be. It wasn't that I can be the person I was, just that like I got back to feeling and them noticing myself again, me being myself again. And care now, it's mostly just kind of like disconnect is more in time, being able to find time for the good moments, like time with my daughter. Like when I have my daughter, I kind of like cut off the rest of the world and just kind of like try to really appreciate time with people, with loved ones. Like that's kind of how the care kind of works for me, is just a kind of like disconnect the noise, if you will, and just kind of like locked in and just enjoy each other. Trying to stay focused on that type of revalue structure that I have coming back home, right? Like, you know, I had I had to rethink about what was important once everything was taken away. And then like, you know, sharing this time, sharing this moment, right? Like, you know, this is something we all have, right, together. We share this together. Nobody can take that away from us, you know. And
That's
so
right. Yeah, you can't take away from me what you gave me yesterday, you know. Yeah, I love all of this. Art as self-care, relationships as self-care. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we have a few minutes before we're going to go to a Q&A, and I'm seeing Curtis here posting. If you have questions, please feel free, put them in the chat. But before we move over to that, I just want to give space and time and energy to share how, Sherrill, you have a upcoming solo exhibition at a NYC gallery. Would you mind just sharing very briefly a preview about what this show will entail or explore, what we can look forward to?
Yeah, it's still kind of like the same old thing that I'm into, like revisiting some of the tools that that experience has given me. And I'm looking back at some of the things that I haven't been able to kind of touch and tune in with. And so, yeah, I can't really speak to the specific items that are going in, but I'm using things that I got while in jail that I've never used before, and trying to, the idea right now is just really thinking about hindsight. Like, you know, in hindsight now, like as I look back, you know, I may have thought differently about it. And I got that a lot. I used to come home with a lot of like letters, and I used to talk to like my family members who were locked up, and I'm like, yeah, I still got the letters. I'm like, what you got those for? Throw those away. And, you know, like I just used to get all of these, all these different hindsight type of like, you know, suggestions of like, they knew something that I didn't know, or knew something about that experience that I didn't know. And I just kind of kept going with my own path. And so now that I have these materials still built up, I'm looking back at them differently. My life's changed a little bit since, you know, every year, every day we change, for good or bad, you know, we kind of move on. But looking back at it, I'm trying to revisit where I am today, you know, and where that was, and try to have new perspective on some of these items and try to say something a little bit differently. They're going to be less direct. Direct is jumpsuit. This work is going to be a little more abstract, and still very minimal. I'm really focusing on acrylic and plexiglass. Something about the transparency as a lens of looking through something, looking within feelings, looking within structures. And that's what I'm kind of playing with right now, and hope to present and hope to have people there and hear. I want to, like, you know, hear what people have to say and how they, you know, interacting with the work.
Yeah, that sounds great. I'm looking forward to seeing how you know, use the materials and how you're thinking about metaphor and what sounds like considering experiences, past and memory. So that sounds great. Where is the exhibition going to be, and what are the dates?
Tanya Banakdar Gallery in Chelsea, and it will be January. Should be, you know, mid-January to like mid-February-ish, January to February.
Okay.
Yeah, so top of the year.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Great. Curtis, we have questions in the chat.
We do. Well, first of all, thank you both for this very informative conversation and relatable. I just couldn't help but to think about our own youth experiences, as well as, you know, personal experiences. I think it's something that a lot of families of color have had to interact with or find ways to heal from. So it was just great to hear your perspective and your story very much so. So thank you so much for joining us and sharing your experience. We do have a few questions. One was sent via email. Do you want me to read them, or are you gonna? I guess I can take it. This was sent to me via email. I was curious to hear about what led you to take the Jumpsuit Project to the digital space with the Jumpsuit Portal.
Yes, I don't really, I mean, I still consider myself available to wear the orange jumpsuit. But I also want an opportunity. The Jumpsuit Portal, if people are unfamiliar, is something that I applied to creative capital for. And it's an opportunity to work with my own community down here in North Carolina, kind of like the workshops that I'm doing now, is where these projects can kind of live, but not it being directly my voice. So the portal is like a platform for other people's perspectives to kind of live within my community and sharing that platform in the space. And it comes out in hopefully multiple mediums, right? Like, you know, it could be interviews with me and the DA, or it could be just the students, like the students that I'm working with now in high school, taking, you know, a form of art and kind of like speaking on the platform, or it could be the law students at the HBCU down there who kind of take a hold and have a commentary on events and things of that nature. So I'm just really interested in a space, a shared platform for a space for my community around these same issues that I was kind of confronted with and engaged with in the Jumpsuit Project, but all being through an art practice or art display in some way.
And I believe you have a question from your fellow board member, Cassandra. You want to take that one, Chloe?
Yeah, Cassandra. Hey, Cassandra. Cassandra is asking, what are some of the feedback or discussions you had with folks as you moved through the campus?
I got a little bit of everything, if you can imagine, like employees who work for the campus. I had like, you know, sweet older women be like, who made you put that on? Go take that off. You shouldn't be wearing that. And, you know, and like, you know, people looking out for me as far like, I didn't know that they were going to look out for me like that. But I told them like, it's an art project. I chose to do this. But that was nice, you know. And then, you know, depending on, you know, where I was at during class change, sometimes, you know, some students ran for me. Other times people caught wind and just wanted to give me a hug or wanted to have a kind of a one-on-one situation and kind of ask. I got a lot of questions from, you know, obviously I'm engaging with people who are out here, right, out in the free world. So they have more questions like, what can I do for my relative who is still incarcerated? Like, you know, how can I make things, the transition better? How can I communicate things better? And this, that, and the fourth. So I got a lot of interesting questions that I never thought to ask myself. Like, oh man, I wonder like if my mom thought about this, or like, you know, like I had no idea if my close family members were actually like going through the same hurdles, had the same type of questions about, you know, engaging and making sure that I'm okay when I came back home. So it was really enlightening for me, but I got all mixed, you know. Sometimes I got people who saw me from a distance and would call the police on me. I got everything but violence, which was really nice. But I got everything else, you know, people who are afraid of me, afraid of the suit, people who comfort me. Yeah, everything, the whole spectrum almost.
Thanks, Sherrill. Thanks for all this. We have time for one more question. And Kate is in the chat and she's saying, thank you, Sherrill, for speaking so openly and honestly with us about your experiences. I'm wondering if you're willing to share more about healing following incarceration. Did some of your desire to be brave and that feeling that I gotta do some work to take on the Jumpsuit Project come from your own desire to process your experiences, your outrage at what happened, wanting to challenge the system, give voice to those people you met while in lockup, or all of the above?
I have to say, I think it was more selfish, to be honest. I think because I had to wake up with myself every day, that I was like the main nuisance to myself, waking up, like, I gotta do something, I gotta do something. And I had to really go for it. I had to really, I needed it. I don't know. It's hard to articulate really. I don't think I want to say like I needed to feel it, I needed to be awakened by something like a release. I needed that, and like making things weren't giving me that. Like it didn't feel like that was my scream. I had to be daring in a way that was like a fierce way. And somehow wearing a jumpsuit on campus scared me enough that it gave me that like spark in myself that was like, okay, now I feel something now. It was like an awakening for myself. I was looking for that because anything else just didn't seem like I was scratching the surface.
Right.
And so the threat of all that anxiety, people telling me I couldn't do it, that I was, silly or stupid for thinking of it, was nah, this is it. It gave me a rush in a sense of I can't believe I'm doing this. But I felt like that's what I needed. I knew because it was completely unknown and completely scary, that that's where I need to be. Yeah, that's where I need to be right now, because I can't feel anything else, and it feels, I'm feeling all kinds of other things.
Well, it also circles back to what we were talking about earlier, how you were sort of asking and questioning, how does someone move forward? And the answer was art. And from, an art therapy perspective, you transform that energy through the material, right? But I hear you sharing the material is not enough, and you literally had to actually become the material. You were the material, and you had to move that and enact that in order to release that.
Yes. Yeah. My body needed the work. Body needed the work. The day-to-day commitment, I hated it at times. I didn't want to get up and stay committed to it. From every which reaction, what didn't make me feel good, people running from me, or all that stuff. So that was tough, but that type of rigor for me and my body, and me being okay, and finding support systems through all of that, and understanding the world that I was walking through, and the honesty of that, having this type of experience, this is what I'm going to have to grapple with. And I needed to see it immediately. I didn't want anybody to hide it from me. I needed to know, tell me how you feel.
Give it to me. Yeah. Give it to me straight, not behind my back. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I love that. Well, thank you so much, Sherrill, for being so generous with your time and everything that you shared with us tonight. It's just incredible. And I can't wait to see your new exhibition and see more of what you're putting out into the world. So just thank you.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. My absolute pleasure. Yeah.
Curtis, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
All righty. Thank you both once again. It was an amazing conversation. And please do share the invitation for the exhibition with us. I would love to bring our youth to see your work and to interact, and maybe find a way to have a conversation with you, with them about the exhibition as well in the future. But thank you so much.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, so for everyone watching, we will be sharing this video on our Artistic Noise website. You can visit us and learn more about our work at www.artisticnoise.org. So thank you all once again for joining, and we'll be in touch. I'll stop the